Hi, Brian here with NetChecklist.com. In this video, I'm going to talk about working with the task list in the application. So here I am logged in as a fictional user, Bob Broker, and at this point, Bob is logged into the application, but he's not working in any organization yet. And because of that, we don't see any of the menu items up here at the top that let us work with checklists or to do a lot of things you can do with the application, and you don't see a task list here. As soon as we go into an organization, however, by selecting one over here, now we are working in an organization. We see these menu items up at the top, and we would see Bob's task list here if he currently had any tasks on his list. Now I'm going to populate the list real quick. Whenever you go into an organization, you're taken to the home page for that organization, and that is the page where you work with your task list, and it's the only page where you work with a task list. And while you're in an organization, you can always get to that page with this button here. In this case, it has the name of the organization and home, so that we're in Ready Real Estate Home. And your button here will have the name of whatever organization you're working in. Now that is different than this home button over here. This button takes us back out of that organization to the page where we were when we first logged in. So on this page, we see that we are currently displaying tasks 1 through 9 of 9. So Bob currently has 9 tasks, and here they are. And notice that at the top of the list, we have this button that says Process Task Updates, and at the bottom we have an identical button. They both do the same thing, and anytime you make changes to the status of any of the tasks on your list, to save the changes, to commit those to the database, you have to click one of these buttons, it doesn't matter which one, to process your task updates. So if we want to mark, say, this first task complete, we can click yes to select that yes, it is complete. It was selected to no, but at this point we haven't saved it. So to save that, we're going to click Process Updates, and now it tells us that one task is marked complete, and that task is now gone off our list. Okay, notice up here at the top, right now it says we're displaying uncompleted tasks only. So that's why when we mark that one complete, it disappeared from our list. We can choose to see completed tasks if you need to. Each time you log into the application, it automatically sets some default settings that control which tasks are displayed and how they're going to be sorted and grouped. And you can see the settings that are currently in place under this task, sort, and display settings. And we're going to be talking about this a little bit more. But basically here it says filter tasks by completed status, and we're selected to see uncompleted tasks only. That is the default. When you've opened up that menu, which I did by clicking on this button, you can collapse it again. It's just an accordion menu, so you can open it to see it, and you can collapse it again. And whenever you make changes, you also have to update the task, sort, and display settings. And that also has a button at the top and at the bottom. So if you make changes, you have to click that to submit your updates. Okay, and if you make changes to any of the defaults under this task and sort and display settings, it's going to tell you up here that you've made some changes. So it's going to try to keep it pretty obvious that you've changed something from your default. So a minute ago, we marked one task complete, but you can do as many as you want at one time. So let's say we're going to mark this one complete and this one complete, and we will, this time we'll use the button on the bottom. They do the exact same thing. Process updates, now we've marked 2 tasks complete. Okay, and as you're marking things complete, you can click the little radio buttons here, but you can also click the big buttons, which is usually easier, especially if you're using your fingers on a mobile phone screen. So we can click yes there, and let's come down here and we'll mark another one complete there, and let's do process updates. So there we marked 2 more tasks complete. Now that time we activated a dependent task, and we'll come back and talk about that in a minute. Okay, so not only can we mark things complete, we can also completely delete individual tasks, or we can put them on hold. And to do that, we have to expand to see the task details. So if we click on this, it expands. That's another little accordion that opens up. And now for this, you see a couple of other things. Here you can delete a task, or you can have it sleep. And basically, if you have it sleep, it's going to disappear from your list for X number of days and then reappear in that many days. Now, why would you do that? One of the big goals of this application is to keep your task list as concise as possible, to only show you the things that you need to do at a certain time. So if you decide that, well, this isn't going to come up for at least 4 more days, you can just put this, I'll select the 4 days here. Here I clicked it using the button, and I will do process updates, and that's going to disappear, and it tells us here that one task was put on hold. If you hover over those buttons with a mouse, There is some pop-up text that explains that, and if you hover over the one for delete task, it talks about that this will permanently delete a task. You should only really do that if you're never going to complete it, and in that case it completely deletes it from the database. When you mark a task complete, it's still in the database, it's marked complete, it records the date and time that it was marked complete, so that is different from deleting something. On these task details, the application used to always display all of that stuff, but it was getting kind of long and a lot of this stuff doesn't get used all that often, so that was why I put that behind that button. If you prefer to see these expanded all the time, there's two things you can do. For a current session, under your task sort and display settings, you can come right here and it says display collapse task details. The default is yes, do collapse it, but if we change that to no and hit update our settings, now those are all going to display expanded rather than collapsed. Now that will work for the current session, but the only thing is when we log out and log back in, it's going to go back to the default where they're going to be collapsed. If you want it to always display expanded, what you need to do is come up here under your user settings, and at the bottom, and here you have a setting to display collapse task details. You want to change that to no, do not collapse, and update your user information, and that will make it show expanded every time when you log in. I'm going to go back to the home page. Again, that's using this button here to go back to the home page for this organization where we have our actual task list, and I'm going to reset that to collapse those task details. I'm going to hit update again, so now we're back like we were. So just like I showed you a minute ago that you can mark more than one thing complete at a time, you can also delete or sleep multiple things at one time. So let's say I'm going to mark this one complete, but on this one I'm going to delete this task, and this one I'm going to have it sleep for 7 days. So I'm going to process updates, and now we marked one task complete, but we also deleted one task and we put one task on hold. So you can do any combination of any number of things at one time. Okay, another thing I want to show you is, let's expand the details, and let's say that we're going to delete this task, but we collapse that again. So right now it looks like it's not there. It looks like it's not there, but it is. So we had marked to delete that, but we recollapsed. But if we process our updates, it did still delete a task. So even if you recollapse that, it's still there. It's still going to get processed correctly when you process your task updates. Okay, also in relation to these buttons, there is some intelligence built into these. So let's say that I had marked this complete, but I have not processed updates yet. But then I change and say, no, you know what, I'd like to maybe make this sleep for a day. So right now I have yes selected, but if I click to sleep for a day, task complete is going to be changed to no, because that's different. If you're going to put it on hold, you don't want to mark it complete. If you're putting it on a hold, that's saying, hey, I'm not going to do it for a couple of days. But then if you went back and said, well, wait, I do want to mark it complete, this is marked to 1 day, then this is going to change to don't sleep. Or if I said that, yes, I'm going to mark it complete, but then I said, no, I want to delete it, then that's going to change that to no. Right now we're on delete, but then if we said, no, I want to sleep for 4 days, then deleted is going to change to no. So there's some intelligence built in. Now we also have a task down here that has got some other items on it, and this is what's called a branching task. And going into how branching tasks work is beyond the scope of this video, but basically this task says find out if the buyers want to have a septic inspection, and then it asks a question, do the buyers want to have a septic inspection? And you have to answer this, and the way it works is if you say yes, the application is going to automatically copy another checklist for you for all the things that need to be done for the buyers to have a septic inspection. Or in this case, if you said no, it doesn't do anything except mark the task complete. Now, the point is that when you have a branching task, a question come up, you do have to answer it in order to mark the task complete. And how it reacts to your answer is going to depend on how your organization has the branching task set up. There is another video on branching tasks if you want to learn how to use them. But if you're just working with the task list, just know that you're going to have to answer this question, because right now you can answer yes, no, or don't answer yet. If I leave it to don't answer yet, but I try to mark it complete and I process updates, it tells us that one task was not marked complete, and it tells us that the task, find out if the buyers want to have a septic inspection, was not marked complete because you did not answer the branch question for this task. You must answer the branch question for the task in order to mark it complete. So if I come back and I say yes, okay, and this also has some logic built into the buttons, just like I told you before. Right now this is selected to no. If I change it to yes, then that says yes, I'm going to mark it complete, because that's answering the question. If I change this again to don't answer yet, that's going to change mark it complete to no. But if I change this to yes without marking it, it can't change it to one of these because it doesn't know which one you want to answer. Also down here, if I had said yes, and then if I said no, I want to put it on hold, that's going to change that to no and this to don't answer yet. But if I do, in this case, say yes, and again, what it's going to do based on your answer depends on how your organization has your checklist set up. But basically on this one, if I say yes and process updates, it tells me one task was marked complete, one checklist was copied, 3 tasks were copied, and 1 task branch was updated. And now it disappears because it was now marked complete. So next, let's talk about task sorting and filtering. Up here it says that currently tasks are sorted by project name. And so we have this project here for a house that Bob is selling at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington. And down here he's got one that he's listed for sale at 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney. And right now they're sorted by project and they're grouped by project. So all of the tasks under here, so each of these says project. So all of these under this are for this project. This is the project heading, and all of the ones down here are for this other project. And if you hover over a project heading, a text box appears that says click here to collapse or expand the group of tasks for this project. So if I click that, it collapses all of the tasks for that project. Okay, and you can obviously click those again to expand them. Now, remember when we were working with our task details and I told you that if you mark this, say, to sleep for 4 days and you collapse that detail, that it's still there, it doesn't disappear, that's still marked. And you can even go a step further, so I can collapse for this whole project. And now if I process updates, 1 task was put on hold. So if you collapse here, they're still there. And if you've made any changes under there, when you process updates, so say we want to mark these 2 complete, collapse that and process updates, it's still going to process them correctly. Now, just like I said, you might prefer to always see your task details expanded. You also might prefer to always see your projects collapsed, which would be the opposite. And if you like to see that, it's going to work the same way. Under your task sort and display settings, you can come up here that says the second item, display collapsed task sort groups. So if I say yes, collapse, and I update my settings, now those are going to display collapsed. Each time I refresh the page, they're going to be collapsed, and I have to expand them to see them. If you like working that way, you certainly can. But just like the other case, if I log out and log back in, they're going to be expanded again. So if you want them to always display this way, you need to come under your user settings. And same thing here, display collapsed task sort groups. You'd want to change that to yes and add or update your user information. So save your user information, and then it would display like that every time when you logged in. So that's how it works when you're sorting by project name. And you probably already noticed under here, under your task sort and display settings, you could also sort your tasks by date, which means the date that they're assigned to you, by task name, or by task class. I don't have any task classes set up in this example, and I'll do another video on that. But if I change this to task name and update my settings, now it's grouped by each task name. So this would be useful if, say, you had to do the same task for a bunch of different projects. I don't think there's any like that in this. Each of these only have 1 task under them. But we're still set to collapse these task sort groups, and we can still expand them when we want to see them, even though these each only have 1 item on them. If you go by date, that does not group them. That just puts them in order that they were assigned to you. So date, there is no grouping. Under task class, though, there is. But again, I don't think I have any set up. Yeah, everything is showing up here under a task class of none, but it does still give you that collapsible group. I do find that sorting by project works best for me, but you can certainly do it another way if you would like to. And just like under those other things, if you want it to display differently every time you log in, you can also change that under your user settings, sort tasks by. So if you wanted it to a permanent change every time you logged in, you would need to do that here under your user settings. So again, I'm going to go back to the home page for the organization using this button here. Okay, so I'm going to put a couple of those settings back real quick. I'm going to go back to sorting by project, and I am going to not collapse that update. So I'm back to kind of how we started. Now, we talked about how it is sorting and grouping by project right now, but we can actually go a step further. If you hover over the project name on any task on here, it says click here to display only tasks for this project. So if we click that, now it tells us up here, we've changed something from our default. We're filtering for only that project. So now we're not going to see any tasks for that other project. So if you had tasks from 10 or 15 different projects, when you filter by that, you're only going to see the task for that one project. And that lets you focus on that one project, go through and work on that, mark things complete, or put things on hold, whatever you're going to do while you're working on that project. And when you're done with doing what you're going to do on that project, you can clear that filter right there to go back and displaying things from both projects. Now you can do the same thing under your task sort and display settings. I'm going to reset that filter here, and under your task sort and display settings, this one right here says filter by project name, and it is selected to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington. And so that's what we're seeing. If we change this to 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, and go down here to update task sort and display settings, now we're only seeing our tasks for the other project. I find that very useful, again, to focus on one project at a time. I have a friend who's a home builder who uses this application, and he uses that a lot. When he gets out to a specific job site, he uses the application on his phone. He will filter for that job, and while he's on that site, he'll work things as he's going through the house, looking to see what's been done. He'll mark things complete, and then when he's done, he'll clear that and go on to another house. Okay, so I'm going to clear that. And another similar feature, remember we talked about we can sort and group by task name, but if we hover over that task name, it says click here to display only tasks with this task name. So you can also filter by task name. And again, that would be useful. Say you had to do the same task for a whole lot of different projects and it was all on your task list. And rather than having to scroll through your task list and find all the tasks with that task name to mark them complete, you could just filter for that task name, and then you'd only see those. You could go through, mark them complete, and process your updates, and then clear that and go on and work on something else. The opposite of doing that, filtering by task name, under your task details is exclude tasks with this task name. So that would not show any tasks with that one task name. Now you might do that again if you had a bunch of the same tasks to complete for different projects, but you weren't ready to do that yet, so you wanted to just hide all of those with that task name and work on other things. You could do that. Now right now we're not going to display any tasks because we've got conflicting filters here. We're saying only show me things with that task name, but don't show me anything with that task name. So with these filters in place, it would never display any tasks. So we've made a bunch of changes to our task sorting and display settings, and let's say we just want to get back to normal. We just want to get back to where we were when we logged in, and we don't want to go through and clear this filter and clear this filter and then go back under here and try to remember what we'd set up here and all that. It's really simple to do. There's a button right here, reset all filters to defaults. And if I click that button, we're instantly cleared back to the way we were when we first logged in. Now, keep in mind, that's going to take us back if we had changed to collapse these or something like that. This is going to take us back to what we have saved under our user settings. Okay, now, depending on how your organization has your checklist set up, they may or may not have a task description for each task. And okay, here we've got the task name, but the idea is that the task name you don't want to be terribly long because that's got to show up on everything. But under your task details, your organization could have a much more detailed task description about how you're supposed to complete this task. So like when this one says prepare the listing paperwork, this could go through and itemize each form that you're supposed to fill out, all of the different forms, much more detailed description of that task. And in most cases, you may not need to see that. So that can be hidden behind your task details. So you may or may not have a task description set up for each task. But because that task description, if there is one, is normally going to be hidden behind these collapsed task details, we don't want to have to go through and look on each task to see is there a description there or not. So if there is a description, you will see this text right here, which is in different color, and it says expand task details to see task description below. So when you see that, that's telling you that there is a description hidden behind these details, assuming you have them collapsed, if you want to go look at it. So that's what this is. These other ones don't have that, and that's because they don't have a task description. So when you see this, it's a hint to you that you may want to go look and see what that description says. So I'm going to mark some of these tasks complete and process update. And this tells us that 6 tasks were marked complete. 8 dependent tasks were activated. Now we've been skipping over this part about the dependent tasks being activated. I said we come back to it. So one of the most useful features of this application is that you can set up dependencies on the tasks on your checklist. And you do that when one task can't be completed until another task or tasks have first been completed. So a dependent task is any task that can't be completed until something else has first been completed. And the reason why this feature is so useful is that we don't need these dependent tasks showing up on our task list until they actually can be completed. It's a waste of time for you to have to keep reading through a bunch of tasks that you can't complete yet. Like I said before, one of the major goals of this application is to keep your task list as concise as possible by displaying only the tasks that you can actually complete at a given time. So each time you mark a task complete, any tasks that are dependent on it will be activated. If a task is dependent on multiple other tasks, then it won't be activated until all of the tasks it's dependent on have been marked complete. So down here, one of the tasks under this project was to prepare the listing paperwork, and when we marked that complete, it activated this task to get the listing paperwork signed by the owner. And below that, it says just activated. So this said 8 dependent tasks were activated, and these are the ones that were just activated. So it's very helpful for the application to clearly identify the tasks that were just activated, because let's say you had 20 tasks on your list and you just marked 6 complete. So there were 14 that you didn't mark complete. And then it tells you that 8 more tasks were just activated. Well, the 8 tasks that were just activated are probably the ones that you're going to be the most interested in, because you just finished reading through the other 14 that were already on your list. So you pretty much already know what they are. And you don't want to have to waste time reading through your entire list again, just trying to figure out which ones were already there and which ones are the new ones. So this is very, very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to filter for now to just see this one project. And what you need to understand is you may go through your task list and mark everything complete. So we marked everything that's currently under this project complete. And you think, okay, I'm done. But when you process updates, you may see, whoa, I'm not done. It just activated some more tasks. So as you're processing your updates, you need to keep going back. If it says things have been activated, you need to go back through your task list again and look for the ones that have just been activated and see if those are things that you can do or need to do now. Now, the just activated is only a one-shot deal. It's only for the first refresh. So like right now, it says just activated. If I refresh this page by going to this here, they no longer say just activated. When I first set that up, I thought, should I have that hang around for a while? And I decided against it for a number of reasons. But the main point here is that even though you may have just marked a bunch of things on your list complete, you may not be done yet. If the application tells you that it's activated dependent tasks when you process updates, then you probably need to go back through your list again to look at the tasks that say just activated to see if those are things that you need to go ahead and do. And depending on how your checklists are set up, it may do that more than once. You could mark some things complete and process updates and activate some dependent tasks. Then you could go through and do those tasks, mark them complete, process updates, and activate even more tasks. And you could easily have to go through this process several times. And that's okay, because the point is to guide users through a process step by step in a logical order. If you happen to know that a specific checklist you're working on does this, then you're probably going to find that it's much easier to follow that process if you filter your task list to see only the things that belong to a single project while you're working on it, and you're marking things complete, and new tasks are being activated each time you process updates. That's exactly what I've done here. See, I've got a project filter here. And remember that you can do that very easily by using the project link under any of the tasks that belong to that project. While we're on this topic, one thing that you should probably be aware of is that if you're part of an organization that has multiple members, there could be tasks assigned to you that are dependent on tasks assigned to someone else in your organization and vice versa. So if the application tells you that dependent tasks were activated, but there's nothing new showing up on your list, it may very well be it's just activated something that is now going to show up on someone else's task list. Of course, it could also be something that's delayed, but that's beyond the scope of this video. Conversely, you could check your task list and see that you don't have anything to do for a given project, but then just a couple of minutes later, if someone else in your organization marks something complete that a task assigned to you is dependent on, then they would activate that task and it would then start showing up on your task list. Now I want to show you one more tasks filtering option that's available. I actually just repopulated my task list, but right now Bob does not have anything showing up. And I did this deliberately. Under your task sorting and display settings, because Bob is a manager of this organization, he has this box to filter tasks for user. Now, if you're in an organization and you're not a manager, you're not going to see this at all. And your default each time you log in is to only show tasks that are assigned to you. But Bob can also see tasks that are assigned to other people. So if we go down here, he can select to see tasks assigned to Andy Agent. But in this case, I'm going to do all users. And Bob has the rights to do that. So I'm going to say to see tasks for all users and update settings. And now I see that there are some tasks showing up. And if I look under the task details, I can see who each task is assigned to. So this is assigned to Andy Agent, and this is assigned to Andy Agent, and this is also assigned to Andy Agent. And as I mark these complete, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to activate some tasks. And I'm going to mark these because I'm going to get down here. Actually, this one is assigned to Sally's secretary, who's another member of the organization. And as I mark these complete, it's going to activate this one to add the property to the company website. That's going to be assigned to Wally the webmaster. And this one is going to be assigned to Bob. So managers can see tasks assigned to anyone. That's what managers do, so they can check and see who's done what and who hasn't done what. And they can also, of course, use that filter in conjunction with, say, a project filter, so he could see everything going on with this project no matter who it's assigned to. And also, because we changed that filter from the defaults, it tells us up here that we're seeing tasks assigned to all users. So there are a few other things having to do with the task list, but this video has gotten about long enough, so I think I'll put those in a separate video on some advanced features, and those are things that you may not use that often anyway. These are the things you really need to know to be able to work effectively with the task list. So thanks for watching.